Right, here we are. Quick video to having a look at AS Economics Paper 1, particularly in preparation for examinations or to understand a little bit more about the paper. Now, the first paper, as you know, focuses on operational markets and market failure, which is essentially microeconomics. Though, given some of the points you can make, not necessarily limited just strictly to microeconomics, so it can take some of the macro portion as well. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through this paper, so you can have a look at it anytime you want to try and understand how we can structure the paper and how the paper's put together. I'm not going to give you any answers for it, as you'll probably be doing one of these for one of your mocks at some point during the course of the year, but I'm going to give you some clues on how to approach general AS economics papers, because it's a pretty formulaic way of doing it, and you can really apply everything to all of them. So paper comes in two parts. You get your question answer booklet, and you also get your context paper. Now, the context paper, such as the one you've got in front of you here, this actually sets out the data which you're going to have. It comes in two sections. You've got context 1 and context 2. So depending on which context you want to follow, which questions you want to do, you'll choose which topic area. So in 2017, first context was about supermarkets, second was about gambling. Now, it was about a 70-30 split in favour of context 2. I marked this paper this year as well, and majority of responses were definitely coming out as context 2. Some reasons which I'll take you through in a minute. Now, the context itself comes out in different sets, and only 3 extracts. First one's a data set, either a graph or a data table. In this case, it's a graph in context 1 about supermarkets. Second one and the third one are usually news articles, which will act as your prompt for your extended writing sections, plus also some of the data you'll find in here might be useful for calculations later on in the work. And then you'll have a look at some of the questions to give you an idea of where you want to respond to this one. Always have a look at the essays first. That's the dictator for everything as far as I'm concerned. What there's no point in doing 10, 14, 18, 22, 25 marks there if you're going to fail on that one. You want to get your 20 marks there and pick up most of these yourself, so it's best to focus on that one first. Second context in this case is about gambling, so a data set there, 2 news articles with some data knocking about in there, followed by a third one which will obviously prompt your extended writing question again. Now if we have a look at the paper itself, paper comes in with 2 sections, 2 contexts. You pick your context, you only answer 1 context. Please don't answer 2 contexts. 1, it'll mean you've done far too much work, and 2, it means you'll have rushed some of it. You've only got an hour and a half per paper. An hour and 20 is good for it. But it depends how quick or slow you write, really. But I would say, looking at an hour and 20, no less than that, really, on this paper. So first section, multiple choice. This is the one which really tests everybody out. Everybody thinks multiple choice, dead easy, 20 questions here, I'll nail this. It's the hardest section by far. Every section has at least 4 responses. 1's clearly wrong. Second one is a bit iffy. 2 of them are very close, but it's got to be very specific. It's almost like dictionary definition perfect in this case. Best way of doing it, really looking at question, work your way backwards. What's wrong, what's wrong, what's wrong, what's right? Some of the questions will require some calculations. You can write any of it. What you've got to make sure is you colour in the circle there, which is correct. Because again, if you decide to change your mind, put a cross through it, circle the right one. If then you wish to return back to when you've crossed out again, you must circle the whole thing, just to make it really, really clear. This is marked by computer, not by human, so you've got to make sure it's very clearly done so the e-reader can pick it up. So examples of graph changes, definitions, understanding of process, lots of different types of questions in here. Skills will do through the course of a year. 20 of those, these can make up a huge part of your paper. Paper's out of 70, 20 marks of multiple choice. Don't think it's insignificant. It's the difference between your grades most of the time. And we come to the actual questions. We're going to select one of the 2 contexts. Once again, as I said, don't select both or you'll have wasted a huge amount of time. Now, the structure of the questions of each context are exactly the same. So I think it's 5 or 6 questions per context. Every question's the same, just asking you a different bit of information. What we'll do is we'll have a look at the context 2, being that was the most popular one, and we'll have a look at how they compare and the kind of ways we can approach them. Now, the first question is always a definition question. So in this case, define external costs. So we're looking at externalities. I'm not going to give you any more information other than that, as you're going to sit this paper later in the year. Definition means that in itself, it doesn't just mean a very brief couple of words. It means a dictionary quality definition, which an economist would understand and be able to dictate as a proper definition. If you only do parts of it, you only score parts of your mark. You don't want to be wasting out marks. We're going to be doing lots of testing during the course of the year to make sure we know all of these off by heart. Your first 10 weeks, you'll be learning 10 of these every single lesson. So in the first week alone, that'll be 30 new definitions that you will be tested on within that week on every other lesson. So you should be nailing these. By the end of Christmas, you should know pretty much every term you need to know. And then we'll start again for macroeconomics. Second question is a calculation question. So it might be calculating a market share, it might be calculating a percentage change, it might be calculating elasticity. Anything we've done a calculation on, it can be asking you to do that. But that's worth 4 marks. Which means if you write the correct answer there, no calculations, but it's correct, you get your 4 marks. If you write the correct answer there, what you think is correct is wrong, you get no marks. But if you put your calculations in there and you have just made an error in process, but you've got the right system, you can still pick up marks. So just like maths, get your workings out in there, it's always worthwhile. Third question, this is the interesting one. This is one I'm going to teach you how to get 4 marks on every single time, because it's really easy, but loads of people get them wrong. I marked a lot this summer where people didn't even pick up 1 or 2 marks. It's a comparison or difference question. Basically ask you to do 2 significant points of comparison in this case. It might be 2 significant points of difference, but you answer the questions in exactly the same way. What I'll ask you to look at in this case is bingo and national lottery. If we go back to the context, I'll eventually go the right way. I do this every single time. Look at the context for it. So what it's asking for is bingo and national lottery. 2 points of comparison. So what I want you to do is every single time is I want you to compare the year in which each variable had the highest value and the year when each variable had the lowest value. So in this case, 2 points of comparison, bingo. The highest level of bingo value was in, there you go, was 703 million in 2009, 2008. And then your next to that is the highest level of national lottery value was in 2012, 2013 at £3,280 million. Make sure you get all the data. So the variable, the date, and the value. Then your second comparison will be the lowest. So bingo was at its lowest in 2009, 2010 at 627 million. No, 2010, 2011 at 626 million, I should say. National lottery was at its lowest in 2008, 2009 at 2,522 million pounds. So make sure you get it. So data set, year, value. Get all those in, and you can't fail to get 4 marks. So comparison 1, highest income for bingo, highest income for national lottery, when and how much. Lowest value for bingo, how much and when. National lottery, lowest value and how much and when. 4 marks, dead easy. Then the next question, in this case question 30. It's a supply and demand graph. It's a bar chart. This, you might get asked to draw a supply and demand graph. You might get asked to draw a pie chart, which you did on context 1 on this one, which was a bit of a change. I've never seen that before. What they're looking for here is accuracy. They're looking for data labels. They're looking for all those things you should have learned at GCSE, but you think you don't need to do so much at A level, but you really do. Accuracy, specificity, and showing that you can do and display data in an accurate way. But we'll do lots more of this during the course of the year as well. Final 2 questions. Next one's a 10 marker. Explain 2 factors that could have increased the percentage of adults who gamble. It's always going to be explain 2 factors or identify 2 pieces of data. So that's a key thing. 2 factors. Don't just talk about one thing. You've got to talk about 2. So what is it? Why is it causing impact? What is the long-term effects of these impacts? Or what data have you got to support it? Get that in. It's really important. But if it says 2 factors, give me 2 factors. If you give me 1 factor, you're only going to get 3 to 4 marks. You will get penalised for only doing 1 factor, no matter how well you write about it. So don't mess around. Make it really clear. Write your first factor, leave a space, write your second factor. Makes it easy for the examiner. You want to treat the examiner like both your best friend, but also an idiot. You want to treat him like your best friend. You want to make it easy for him to mark. You want to treat him like an idiot. You've got to lay it out really simply for him to follow. And the final question is your essay. Now, this essay should draw in information from your own knowledge, but also, most importantly, from the context. If you don't use context data, you lose all your application marks. So you need to be using data, you need to be using the actual industries, or the business which is in there, or the government. Whatever is being used, you must make reference to it very clearly and very explicitly. Now, the essay will always be about 1 of 3 things. It will always be about government intervention, market failure, or comparing the success and failure of 1 or 2 variables. So it'll always be the same thing. We'll do plenty of practice on all 3 of these. By the time you come around to sit in this paper, you'll have done at least 10 to 15 essays which are relevant to this paper. So essentially, if you're writing an essay about market failure, no matter what the topic is, the essay will be written in exactly the same way. You'll look at the same factors, the same points, you'll just make it relevant to the context of the question you're actually doing it. That will make it easier, you will understand how to do it, but you can refer back to this recording anytime just to give you a bit more understanding about how to do these papers. Alright, I'd recommend you have a look at this a couple of times, have a listen to it, especially just before the night before you're doing a mock or something like this, just to get your head around it a little bit better. And hopefully it will help you and move you forwards a bit. Okay, thanks very much. Bye.